After Brexit and Trump, is France set to be the next country to witness a shock win for populism? I'll speak to a close advisor of far-right presidential candidate Marine Le Pen. I'm Mehdi Hassan. Also on the show, Emmanuel Macron is leading in the polls in the race for the French presidency. But is he a breath of fresh air or the establishment candidate? That's our debate. But first, before Macron can win, he has to beat the far-right candidate Marine Le Pen of the Front National. She says her party has changed, but has it really? Earlier I spoke to the special coordinator for Le Pen's campaign, Jean Messiha. Jean Messiha, thanks for joining me on UpFront. Do you understand why so many French people, especially from minority communities, are worried by the prospect of a Marine Le Pen presidency, by the prospect of having a French head of state from your party, the Front National, with its long history of promoting extremism, racism and division?
Well, I don't agree that minorities are particularly scared about this issue. You know, I travel in France a lot since many months now. I'm doing public meetings, I'm meeting a lot of people, including minorities, and I don't see that there is a particularly scared people about this issue. On the contrary, I'm seeing now more and more people asking about our project, about our program, getting interested in what we are proposing to the French people. And this is very encouraging because our project is englobing, it's inclusive, not exclusive.
Although historically, minorities haven't really voted for the Front National for obvious reasons. There are around 5 million Muslims living in France today. Does the Front National, do you consider them to be French or foreign?
All persons that are carrying the French citizenship are French citizens. There is no ambiguity about that. You are talking about history. Don't take the Front National of the 70s as a reference.
How about the Front National of 2010? Marine Le Pen, your party leader and presidential candidate, said at the time about French Muslims praying in the street. She compared it to the Nazi occupation of France. Last time I checked, the Nazis were foreign invaders of France, illegal occupiers. Isn't that offensive and an absurd comparison to make between French Muslims and German Nazi invaders?
She did not talk about Nazi, she talked about occupation, and this is exactly the case. I mean, in France, we have rules, we have laws. It was not because they are Muslims. Any other people who are occupying illegally the public space would have been out of law. So we have rules, we are a state of law
She was explicitly referring to World War II. She said, for those of you who want to talk a lot about World War II, we could talk about occupation of territory by Muslims praying.
There was a legal action against this of some minorities association who sue Marine Le Pen for those declarations, and the Justice of France, the French court, decided that there was nothing illegal in what she said.
Okay, you say that this is history. Marine Le Pen has cleaned up your party, got rid of the anti-Semitism of the past, got rid of what you even called, I believe, the fascistic stench in the party under its previous leader, its founder, her father, Jean-Marie Le Pen. But Marine Le Pen joined the party when her father was leader. She campaigned for her father when he was saying the gas chambers are a detail of history.
I don't think so. She was 22 or 23 years old when this happened, and at that time she was student, and after that she became lawyer. Actually, she joined the political action in the middle of the 2000s.
No, she joined the party before her father made those comments. And as you know, he made those comments repeatedly in the 80s and 90s, right up until recently. Can you tell our viewers, who is the honourary president of your party today? It's a very simple question. Who is the honorary president of your party today? What is his name?
Okay, listen, mister, I came here to try to explain a position. I'm not coming here to get whacked, okay? So if you want to listen to my answers,
I am. Who is the leader of your party?
And I try to explain what is our...
Who is the honorary president of your party today? What is his name? Can you tell our global audience who is the honorary president of the National Front, of the Front National?
We do not have any honorary president. Jean-Marie Le Pen has been expelled from the party.
But he is still technically the honorary president. I believe he won a court case to keep himself as honorary president. And didn't you also take 6 million euros?
He was expelled, and the justice, the French court, obliged us to take him back again, and we said no, and there is a legal action against this for now.
So why did your party take 6 million euros in a loan from Jean-Marie Le Pen's company? If you're distancing yourself from the racist, anti-Semitic founder, why did you take 6 million euros?
This is an incorrect information. We did not take 6 million euros from Jean-Marie Le Pen. We took 6 million euros from a small organism called Cotelec, which is social reason is to lend to Front National. So this is not the money of Jean-Marie Le Pen, it is the money of Cotelec.
But it's controlled by Jean-Marie Le Pen, it's his company.
Which is controlled. It's controlled by many people, including Jean-Marie Le Pen, but its social reason is to lend to Front National, so we are in perfect legality.
And what about Frédéric Chatillon, who's been in the news recently in France, a close friend of Marine Le Pen? He's on the payroll of your presidential campaign, and he organizes apparently celebrations of Hitler's birthday and runs a bookshop that trades Holocaust denial literature.
No, this is total lies. This is propaganda from the French media who do not want to listen to us on our project, on our economic project, political project, social project.
So he has not ever organized a party celebrating Hitler's birthday.
Ruling system.
He's never organized a celebration of Hitler's birthday.
Not.
And he's never run a bookshop selling Holocaust denial.
No, absolutely not. The Front National of 2017 and Marine Le Pen at his head has nothing to do with historical rules. 80% of our members and militants have less than 4 years in our party. Today, the Front National is a structure that gathered 30% almost of the vote. You cannot accuse 30% of the French people to be Nazi or fascist. This is a big insult to the 30% of French voters to us.
Well, let's talk about your policies rather than go on public opinion. Let's go on what actually defines your party. One of your signature policies is banning the headscarf, the hijab, in public places. It's already banned in schools. In France, you want to ban it in public too, which as far as I'm aware, no country on earth has ever done. That's how extreme your party is. It's willing to violate human rights, civil liberties, religious freedom, and go after Muslim women in public, which no country in the world has ever done.
No. If you want to keep civil peace in France, we have tradition, we have the laicity, we are not Anglo-Saxon model. We have a separation between what belongs to religious and what belongs to state. It was applied into schools, and we ought to apply it on the public space in order to keep civil peace.
But it's not about civil peace, though, is it? Because Marine Le Pen herself says, because she said to the Jewish people who have to give up their skull caps, I believe, she said, I hope they can understand. We asked them to make this sacrifice.
So it is not.
Well, no, hold on. Let me read the quote of your leader. She said, we asked them to make this sacrifice
to
fight against the advance of political Islam. So it's not about secularism or laicity. It's about going after Islam. Because in fact we cannot deny the reality. What is
Today
the reality?
You have a political Islam. My God,
but women who wear headscarves are not all Islamists.
Didn't you see that the political Islam?
But women who wear headscarves are not all Islamists, as you know.
France was attacked severely by Islamist group.
By women in headscarves?
We have hundreds of dead people and blood in our streets, and I think that the French people in its totality reacted in a very dignity way.
We all agree that France has suffered huge tragedies, but why are you blaming French citizens? You said yourself, French citizens, Muslim women who are citizens of France, who want to wear a headscarf. What's that got to do with terrorist attacks?
Because the liberty of some people must stop when the liberty of others begins. There is a big difference between Islamism and Islam.
Agreed.
If you
and
do
hijab
not understand
is part of
this
Islam,
difference,
is it not?
Then you cannot understand anything.
And the hijab is part of Islam, not Islamism.
Yes, exactly. Because if you in some vicinities in France, women are forced to put the veil, because if she do not put the veil, when she goes out on the street, she gets insulted and she gets sometimes beaten.
And now you're
this is a
forcing
reality
women
in
to
some
take off the hijab.
French neighborhoods.
So you're just as bad as the people who forced them to wear it. There's no difference between it. You're forcing them to take it off. We saw French police forcing a woman to strip on a beach last summer. That's liberty.
as we force them also to we force people to respect the neutrality of the public space.
You say the Catholic community is, quote, the national community of France. Your MP Marion Maréchal Le Pen says France is a Christian country with a Christian culture. You don't sound very secular. You sound very Christian to me, but you pretend that you're treating all religions equally.
No, exactly, because this is a history reality.
I thought you were a secular country.
Yeah, but we have traditions. I mean, secular country does not mean that we cancel our history. So what do you mean? You mean we're going to destroy the churches and destroy the crosses in the street that were legated by the centuries of Christian history? What is this view? I don't understand.
Well, you say you're secular, laïcité, and yet you yourself have said, quote, a surge of several million Christians.
You want us to destroy Notre Dame? You want us to destroy Sacré-Cœur?
You yourself said a surge of several million Christians from the Middle East to France would shoot down the Islamism of our neighborhoods. If you're truly a secular politician, why do you care what religion an immigrant is or a French citizen is? You shouldn't care. They should just be French citizens. Why do you care how many Christians or Muslims there are?
We are not taking care about religion. We are taking care about the political aspect.
Why did you say we should have a surge of several million Christians from the Middle East? Why did you say that? Why did you say we should have a... You said it. You said in a tweet, December 24th, 2016, a surge of several million Christians from the Middle East to France would shoot down the Islamism of our neighborhoods. Did you not write that tweet, Mr. Messiha?
At that time, there was the Christian minorities who were persecuted by ISIS. Don't forget that. And we, as a country of human rights, it was our duty to welcome all the minorities that are persecuted and executed in some areas, and we have special duty for the Middle Eastern Christian since a long time. This is a legation of history. Also.
But it sounds like you're trying to have your cake and eat it. On the one hand, you're saying we're a secular country, Muslims should follow our ways, but when you want to, you're willing to say, let's give Christian immigrants preference, let's carry on supporting a Christian country and a Catholic community, but only secularism only matters when you're going after Muslims.
Because it is not... The ISIS is not are not forcing the Muslims to become sex slaves.
French Muslims are not all ISIS,
I am saying wrong.
French Muslims, millions of French Muslims have nothing to do with ISIS. You agree with that, don't you?
I'm not saying that. You are asking me about.
Well, you keep bringing up ISIS when I'm asking about secularism
the Middle
in
Eastern
France.
Christian. We are not talking about. No, you are asking me about the priority we give to the Christian minority to be welcomed in France. I am answering you that Christian minorities are persecuted.
That's not what you said, though, Jean Messiha. I know you've forgotten your tweet. You said specifically we should bring in Christians to shoot down Islamism in our neighborhoods. You're talking about religious balance. You're talking about secular politicians saying we should have more Christians to cancel out Muslims.
I did not say shoot down. You are transforming my words.
Before we finish, in a recent conversation with one of your party supporters online, you called for, quote, the mass expulsion of imams, who are extremists, you say, and said that if the state wasn't ruthless against our enemies, the Marseillaise will be put into practice. The Marseillaise is, of course, the national anthem, which calls for watering our fields with impure blood. Were you suggesting that members of the French public should take up arms against imams who they think are extremists? Are you calling for bloodshed?
No. What I was saying about that is that the state must have an authority and must apply the rule and must apply the legality. If the state is feeble, it will be replaced by violence in the streets. So it's of our duty to restore the French authorities, the French legal framework in order to keep civil peace.
Jean Messiha, thank you for joining me on UpFront. With a fragmented left and a scandal-ridden right, France's presidential race has an unexpected front-runner. Emmanuel Macron, a 39-year-old investment banker and former finance minister, has emerged from relative obscurity to lead the pack. And a lot of liberals are now hoping he's the man to stop far-right challenger Marine Le Pen in the second round of the presidential election. But with populism on the rise, is Macron's centrist and in many ways neoliberal agenda really what the French voters want? Is he the change candidate or in fact Mr. Continuity? Joining me here in the arena here to debate this are Benjamin Haddad, one of Macron's top representatives, and in Paris, Laura Slimani, an advisor to Socialist presidential candidate Benoît Hamon. Thank you both for joining me on UpFront. Benjamin, let me start with you. You joined Emmanuel Macron's En Marche movement early on. You're now one of its representatives. This is a brand new party. Your candidate did serve in a socialist government, now calls himself an independent, but has never actually been elected to office before. What does he actually stand for?
Well, first, I mean, he was never actually a member of any party before that. As you mentioned, he was a civil servant and an investment banker, became an advisor and a minister to Hollande, and he decided to resign. And instead of joining the left-wing primary, or instead of trying to join one of the presidential campaigns, decided to create his own movement from scratch that we call En Marche Forward, which is a completely unique platform that is both socially liberal, economically liberal, moderate. He's also unabashedly pro-European. At a time after Brexit, when you have the rise of populism all over Europe and the United States, he is not shy in defending the European Union and saying that it needs to be reformed, it needs to be transformed. But these are, I think, the key pillars of Emmanuel Macron's message.
But Benjamin, he was a finance minister in François Hollande's government. The former Prime Minister Manuel Valls now endorses him. Before becoming a politician, he was a banker. He's a product of elite schools. What do you say to those who say he is the continuity candidate? He's not the candidate of change.
Well, he is not relying on the traditional party structures. He's not relying on traditional politicians. Indeed, he's endorsed from people from the right to the left, but he's already said that he would not govern with them, that he would govern with fresh faces.
Okay, Laura, he's a reformer and he's not relying on traditional party structures. He's a different type of politician.
Well, I think he's just, a conservative with a new book cover. It's the same book, it's the same solutions. It's the solutions that the right and the left sometimes have tried for the past 30 years, liberalizing the labor market, reducing public spending, harming our public services, not giving any rights. He doesn't stand for any new rights for workers, for LGBTI, for women. And, just as a reminder, I mean, lots of people from the right from the Conservative Party have joined him because they're very uncomfortable with his own candidate and very comfortable with the platform of Emmanuel Macron, which I don't think is the proof of, or is the testimony of a candidate that stands for change. I think it's the testimony, or it's the proof that this candidate is standing for a conservative policy.
Benjamin, you're backing a conservative.
I'm not backing either a conservative or a socialist. I think these are actually, views of the past. I mean, he is indeed supported by a lot of people who come from the right, by a lot of people who come from the left, because they don't recognize themselves in the way the parties are structured right now. They're extremely polarized. The socialist primary has produced probably the most left-leaning candidate.
Because he doesn't stand for anything.
The Republican primary. Okay, let me finish, please. The Republican primary has produced also a very social conservative and a very right-leaning candidate on economic issues and on liberalization. So he is indeed, he's a moderate. He's very pro-European. He's the only one who's running on a positive and optimistic platform when it comes to Europe.
I mean, I'm sorry. Your candidate is not saying anything about the challenge of automation, for instance, which is something that President Obama, at one of his last speech of his presidency, said was the main challenge for the working class and for working people tomorrow. He doesn't, give any solutions to that. Only saying that he's going to reduce the rights of workers. He's not going to create more jobs by investing in renewable energies. He's going to reduce the amount of jobs in the public services when we need more jobs in order to take care of old people, in order to take care of our education system, in order to invest in future sectors of the economy. Emmanuel Macron doesn't give any way forward. He doesn't stand for anything new. The candidate that does is mine, Benoît Hamon, and I'm sorry to be very partisan there, but he's the only one who put forward new solutions to the current problems: universal basic income, new ways of reducing working time.
Laura, let me ask you a question on your candidate. You say, your candidate offers new solutions. I mean, Emmanuel Macron has said the labels of right and left are outdated. Benjamin says a lot of French voters don't see themselves in socialist or conservative terms. When you look at the next presidential election, when you see that the Republicans and the Socialists, the two traditional mainstream parties of France, probably won't be on the ballot in the second round, Macron has a point, doesn't he?
I am not defending one party or another party. I am defending a candidate that is actually, not only saying he's new and pretending he's new because he thinks being new is a good campaign communication strategy. He's actually standing for new solutions. There is nothing new in what Emmanuel Macron is standing for.
Benjamin, if you look at the election of Trump, if you look at Brexit, a lot of these upsets over the last year, these populist upsets, many would argue have been driven by a backlash against globalization, against stagnant wages, against kind of corporate takeovers of public life. And yet you have a candidate, your candidate Emmanuel Macron, who's arguing for more liberalization, more globalization. Aren't you worried that'll end up producing the same result as we saw in the US and the UK with Trump and Brexit? You'll end up with Marine Le Pen if Emmanuel Macron is the opponent.
No, actually the contrary. I think if Macron wasn't candidate today, we'd have a huge risk of having Marine Le Pen being elected, and I think he's the best barrier against her. The populists are proposing protection, cultural protection, barriers, borders, protectionism, because they know that the new divide is between those who propose closed societies and those who propose open societies. You can't be shy on the other side. You can't say, well, we do a little bit like the populist, and you can't only be a technocrat. I think the thing that Macron is doing, he's, as I said, unabashedly pro-European. He's thinking that globalization could be a chance for France. He's not saying that...
Isn't he by definition a technocrat?
No, I don't think he's a technocrat. No, I think he's exactly opposite of this. I think he started his campaign before even coming out with his technical platform and his concrete policy proposals. He's coming out with a vision for society. He said, an optimistic, forward-looking vision of France that is reconciled with itself, that can use Europe and globalization as an opportunity.
Okay, let Laura respond.
What Mr. Haddad is not saying to you is that Emmanuel Macron wants to suppress massively jobs in the public sector. Now, how is that something valuable and something relevant for the future when you know the challenges we have ahead of us regarding the aging population we have and the lack of personnel to take care of them and the bad way they are being taken care of, when you know the challenges ahead of us in terms of education, because education is the best way to prevent unemployment in the future.
Hold on, isn't what you're describing a failure of the left, in particular a failure of the socialist president? It's not as if France has been ruled by the right for the past 5 years. It's been ruled by the president from your party.
Well, precisely. I mean, but what went wrong with the presidency of François Hollande, and what a lot of people have been saying for a long time when we saw the way things were going, is that we didn't, as the Socialist Party, stand as the force of transformation. We, decided to go with the flow of globalization, to go with the flow of liberalization measures in the labor market, and this is something that Benoît Hamon has always been very critical of. But these methods are exactly what Emmanuel Macron is standing for. He's standing for the same thing, just worse and 10 times more intensively.
Benjamin, how is Emmanuel Macron, if he wins, how's he actually going to govern? Because in France, parliamentary elections are held a month after presidential elections. Obviously, Emmanuel Macron and Marine Le Pen, if they're the two final candidates, as the poll suggests, neither of them are going to have a majority in parliament. How will your candidate actually govern without a majority in parliament?
He's going to run 577 candidates. He might have some people from the Socialist Party, some people from the Republican Party joining him after the presidential election. The vast majority of the candidates will be new. He already committed to having 50% of women, to having a majority of people who come from civil society, a majority of people who have never been elected
to office.
50%
of women
I was
is
in
the
Paris
law,
just to,
so he has to.
Yeah, it is the law, but unfortunately it is a law. I completely agree with Laura, but it's a law that a lot of parties have decided not to respect and pay a fine not to respect. And I think she would agree on this.
Your former party,
so,
that's true, but the left has respected it.
Yeah, the Republican Party, the Socialist Party for a long time. But anyway, let me just add something, a couple things. First, so he will run candidates, and I think the French will be consistent and give them a majority. And I think they want new faces, they want renewal. He's running on his own vision and his own platform, and I think that's also what's creating this momentum. Is you see the same old recipes, reducing spending on one side, increasing spending. People are fed up with these constant old recipes that we hear at every election.
We're running out of time. Laura, let me ask you this. If it's Emmanuel Macron, as all the polls suggest, who will face Marine Le Pen in the second round, will you put your animosity towards Macron aside, and will you be out there with others on the left campaigning for Macron to stop Le Pen? Isn't that the priority?
We always have stood in front, next to the Republican, the Republican as like not the right-wing candidate, but the candidate that respected democratic values against the National Front. So that's not going to change from one day to another, contrary to the way it did change in the Conservative Party. And that actually gave Marine Le Pen and her party the opportunity of getting a lot of town halls and political positions. But what I want to say is that I will fight until the 23rd of April, and hopefully until the end of this election, for the candidate that is actually standing for progressive policies in this election, Benoît Hamon. It's clearly not Emmanuel Macron. I will stand for clarity, because I think the clarity of the alternative we give to Marine Le Pen is the best way to beat her, not only on the short term, but also on the long run.
Laura, Benjamin, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you both for joining me in the arena. That's our show. Up Front will be back next week.